Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Aptate Podcast. Now, something that might come off as very surprising or might not be very surprising to you listeners is probably the fact that I'm the only guy speaking here. Yes, you got that right. And initially, I intended it for it to be a two-man project with one of my very good friends, Siddhant. And by the way, I probably forgot. I'm just so nervous at the moment. I am Aditya Didwania, and I'm a student at the University College of London, and I'm studying theoretical physics. And this is the Aptate podcast, as you've guessed by now, and I've probably repeated it almost more than twice. However, I feel that the intent behind this podcast is to probably be more productive with how I spend my time, and probably have a project that contributes and gives back to the community in a manner where they are able to grow with me, because that's the intent behind this podcast. While I network with certain people, be it my friends, be it my colleagues, be it my professors, be it someone with a big name, someone with a huge amount of followers. What I want this podcast to be is some sort of a go-to place for youngsters and for people who want to be up to date with the youngsters about what's going on around the world, and what is it that is in trend, and in general who want to just broaden their sense of creativity and just broaden their creativity spectrum. And I feel this is the problem that we have in today's time and generation, especially due to the pandemic. I mean, you can't even blame, the generation as a whole for it. It's probably also the pandemic, because we are in a time where I feel that we are just so addicted to the concept of passive connectivity. Like, I've had friends, I've had people who I see that are more comfortable with talking to people around on text than they are in real life. And that really amuses me as a person who has always been somewhat of an extrovert, and at the same time also enjoys talking to people like I am enjoying talking to you right now. Because even though some might say that it feels blank to talk to just a microphone or just a camera, I feel that it's more about talking to yourself and just out, putting something out there that you would expect to listen yourself. And I guess that is the whole concept of conversing with yourself. And I believe that this is the reason why I created this podcast in the first place. I wanted this podcast to serve as this dose of daily productivity for those who just want to learn something new, as I myself intend it to be a part of it. Like, I initially did not know about the whole LGBTQ plus community completely, and then I found this podcast video, I found this YouTube video, and I just watched it and listened to it for about an hour or two. And I was just so well versed with the concept that I knew, all right, this is what it actually is. And it helped me just grow with the person who was actually learning it. And I felt, hey, I could do it. And as a matter of fact, to be very frank with you guys, it also serves as a beneficiary to my, whole personality, I feel. Because I think that this is the thing with podcasts these days. Even though everybody is doing it, the two things that I've noticed with podcasts is that either it is a person with a lot of connections, a person who can get a lot of people on their podcast, have them talk about a few things, and they're just good at talking, or it is either someone who has constrained themselves to a specific field. Like, for me, the inspiration behind starting this podcast was probably seeing these two students from the University of Toronto who had started out a podcast in maths and physics. And being a theoretical physics student myself, I was so intrigued by the concept of that podcast and how they had managed to call certain guests on their podcast who I couldn't even imagine talking to. And turns out the max they did was probably cold email them or cold message them in order to convince them to come to their podcast. And being the math and physics podcast, they've always stayed consistent on the track. I too initially by myself intended for this project and this podcast to be something related to a specific field wherein I talk about, let's say, physics, I talk about sports, I talk about the news, I talk about politics, because there's a lot of things that interest me. But I realized that by a lot of things I mean almost everything, and I just want to learn everything. Like, even when trying to choose a major, I wanted to study biology, physics, chem, math, arts, law, just anything that you'd put on my plate. And I felt that even though it is humanly possible to just excel at everything, it's probably possible to know everything while you can, to the best extent possible, by giving away your leisure time to it. And guess what? I even feel that's a very productive way to spend your time, because a huge argument that stays with gaining knowledge is that, hey, how would you use it? Or is it helping you get money, or is it helping you make money? And I feel this is where I think opportunities are missed and people just have a very narrow minded view regarding education and regarding learning as a whole, because they don't realize that having a money making mindset is one thing, but having a set of broad perspectives and creative solutions and just a lot of education in your mind probably adds the fuel to the fire of mind making that money making that you have. And speaking about money, I feel that one book that I'm currently reading that has influenced my thinking of money as a whole has been the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I feel that this book has been just so influential to my way of thinking about money. And I'm sure those who have read it are completely relating to this or might not, depending on how you've been brought up, or how you've been or where you've been raised. But for me, as a person in a Indian family, I was always taught these stereotypes that the author talks about, be it saving, be it real estate, be it something else. And the author just punches and just gives a big push to those stereotypes and tells that all right, they're wrong. And it is so hard to digest it at first, but the hard it's a truth, it's the truth pill that is hard to swallow. And I guess the author has done a very great job doing so. And behind money making, something that we relate money making to a lot is also productivity. And while I would love to talk about productivity, I too am lost about discovering the concept of productivity as a whole. As sometimes someone searching for productivity, I feel that even the productivity in itself is a concept that can be, blended into your daily lifestyle. I feel having a goal for it is very important. And with goals, I feel that the stronger your resolve for a goal, the bigger your sacrifices. As simple as that. And I think productivity just automatically seeps in with having a goal. However, there are people like myself right now. Like, once I got done with my A levels, I got the best result possible that I could. I was so lost for about a month or two because I just hadn't, had anything else in my mind. I was just so focused for those, for a year or two. And right now, I guess I have a lot of time for myself and a lot of time to just brainstorm ideas and to get more fit and to prepare for my university. And who knows, I might even develop a few bigger goals while I get into university, as to bring the best out of university or getting the best scores there or something along those lines. And that is the future plan that I have with this podcast as well. I just want it to, I think it's a testament for me being consistent with any project that I start. And this podcast is just one of them. And you, as a listener, probably do not have to be compulsive about listening to the whole thing. But I too myself have had this complex while thinking about this podcast, as to why would the listener want to listen to me or why would they not want to listen to me. But the point being that this is something that I really enjoy. This is something that really comes from within me. This is something that helps me feel that my voice and is being heard, and I'm having some sort of a back and forth discussion with a huge audience that might or might not agree with what I have to say. And I believe that this is what Aptate will serve to be, and any podcast, as a matter of fact, serves to be. And I feel that you listening to it, or anybody listening to it, probably has a chance to interact with me, at least during the few initial episodes as we go along. As we could have a chat, we could have disagreements. And I believe that is the beauty of having social media and having internet as a whole. It allows you to communicate and just be there everywhere. you know it's just being all over the place. And I feel that just accelerates productivity so much. And this is what brings to me to the recent article that I read, and I forgot its name, but it was about how, yeah, it was the online game. And this essay, it just talks about, this article that talks about as to how we all are just playing an online game. And it changes the whole perspective as to how we look at social media. How it is often perceived that using social media and mindlessly scrolling through it is a bad habit and is probably just wasting your time and is not at all a productive habit. But what we have also failed to realize is that there was this funny tweet, I can't remember whom it came from, but it also said that we are in a generation, or we are in a time where we are competing to earn money by seeing who hits the right key on the keyboard at the right time. And as funny as that sounds, it is also as true. And I feel that this is, the a different point of view that that article explores, and it just helps you think that you just not might be mindlessly scrolling, but at the same time you also might be intaking some good amount of information that might or might not be of use in the future. Like something that I feel has a lot of potential today is memes. And memes promote this huge market as we see it. Like for example, I'll like in the recent times, I'm sure a lot of you might have seen the whole Dominic Toretto thing going around where people talk about family and all of that. But what we don't realize is that people who are unaware about the movie or people who are unaware about the concept would probably want to know what the meme is. And by the time they know the meme, they will also know what Fast and Furious is. And by the time they also know what Fast and Furious is, they'll probably be curious to watch it. And this indirectly shows the power of memes to promote a movie, an action thriller movie. Who would have thought that these two would come together in order to have help make the producers money or help make the actors money or give them even greater opportunities? It just shows that there are a lot of times where we think that, all right, this field might not give me money or this field might not give me the right opportunities. But I feel that it is not about getting those opportunities, it is more about creating them. And this sounds funny coming from a 17-year-old, but I feel that based on the experiences that have been shared with me by my respected seniors and those who have had a good amount of experience with life, jobs, and life as a whole, have always told me that there have been people who've just broken the bar as a whole and have just you know cleared the roof by talking about something or just thinking of something that is so unique and that is so obvious that we had never thought of. And speaking of obvious, that's the thing with curiosity. Now that is what brought me into theoretical physics in the first place. Theoretical physics has been around in my mind, and actually a very common question that I face usually is that why do I study theoretical physics and not just physics? I feel that theoretical physics explores the unknown. It explores what cannot probably be ever seen or just felt. Theoretical physics actually explores the essence of physics, something that we'll never see, but something that will satiate our hunger for knowledge, satiate our curiosity. Because that's the thing with humans, we are just so curious about everything, be it about hey, how can I make money in the best manner? That is a form of curiosity. Hey, how can I be productive all day? That is a form of curiosity. Hey, how does this computer work? That is a form of curiosity. How are you able to listen to me right now? How am I able to upload this audio? How am I able to manage to do all of this in the first place? That too is a form of curiosity. And that is, I feel, the power that we subconsciously have and that we are not devoting ourselves to, that probably causes ourselves to have this constant unproductiveness throughout our days or weeks. And a common trend that I've seen throughout, even like during like my most unproductive days, is that I am the most aimless that I could ever be. I lack purpose, as a whole. That usually it is, all right, I need to do my homework, I need to do my assignments, I need to do this, I need to prepare for this test, I need to go out there and give this presentation, I need to apply for this internship, I need to apply for my visa. But after a certain point, it just goes boof, and you're just done with all of your work, and now you just have a lot of spare time, and something that used to appeal you now is not there. And I feel that I personally have been so habitual to having an authority establish deadlines over me that now those self-imposed deadlines are just not strong enough. I don't know if you get me while I say this, but I feel having the power to have this discipline of having the self-imposed deadlines on yourself is a very beautiful power that I don't know if a lot of people possess. But it's very rare for me to just randomly find a person who can be like, all right, I can control myself, or I can just set these goals and have them done even though nobody is asking for me to do it. Like there's no university, there's no school system, there's no government asking you to just complete it by this date, or you might have repercussions. To have no repercussions, to have no losses, and to still aim for profits is a very huge thing. That is actual growth. And while this might sound like a cliche, what I want you to focus on is probably the fact that this sort of discipline is what needs to be created, and you can find different ways to do it. I myself am trying few things day in and day out, and I'm being very honest with you. The podcast is one of my ways to impose these self deadlines on myself, so that all right, I need to get this recorded by this date, I need to get it uploaded by this date, I need to get it edited by this date, I need to mail this person to get on my podcast, I need to read this article to help with my podcast. And I feel that having this sort of project that I can trust and invest myself into helps me really think about it from a different perspective altogether and invest myself into something that might or might not be productive, but at the same time seeps in a sense of discipline into me. And I feel that this is what productivity has been misunderstood for. We feel that productivity is just money making, or productivity is just, I don't know, getting just the best out of yourself in a manner which is very narrow minded. But I feel that is clearly not the case. The thing with productivity is about doing what brings you pleasure. And by pleasure, I do not mean distractible pleasure, pleasure which does not lead to ultimate growth. Rather pleasures which actually lead to growth, which is where the cliche again comes in, where you enjoy the journey rather than, hoping for the destination, because you never know where your journey ends and you might or might not reach the destination. Which also brings us to the fact as to how unfair the whole world can be at times, where you might give it your 100, where you might give something your 100%, you might do, something by yourself, and things just might go wrong. And which is, why I feel that even though this podcast might not ever, within the span of the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, even after a lot of episodes, might not garner tons of attraction, but something that it will serve for, or something that it will help me with, is probably the fact that I was disciplined and consistent about something that I personally believed in, that would or would not make sense at all to the future, in the future. And this is a way in which I also would suggest the listeners to go out and, do something for yourself, do something that you feel will help impose discipline on yourself. Be it, something that has been very common these days is probably meditating or exercising or losing weight, or just doing or resisting yourself from using social media, as we all are just connected to this passive connective mind of state, wherein we need constant sense of validation from people that we are not left out, because every day we scroll through stories trying to look at what people are doing, as they highlight the best parts of their day. But something that we forget during this time is that we are subconsciously validating ourselves that, all right, this person has not moved ahead, or ahead of me, and if this person has moved ahead of me, we just start, finding excuses as to, oh, they might have had this, oh, they might have had that. And I feel that is nothing but a short form for an excuse. And I feel, while a lot of people take it as a dose of motivation for them to just get out of the couch and just start doing something, as it was for me, like, I've had a good amount of time off social media, and I can tell you personally that it has been the best time for me. And while this podcast as a whole serves for the same, I would also I also think that it was social media too, with all the additional reasons that I told you about, that helped me, finally get out of what free state I was in. Because right now I have a lot of leisure time, because my university hasn't started. I'll be leaving in a month, and I can probably enjoy with my friends. But I I have been trying my best at the very least, even though I haven't been completely productive. I have been whiling away time just doing nothing. I've been trying to get on track with my podcast, get on track with my goals, try and find out new things, try and explore new things that come into my mind. Because as long as they are not costing me any money, I'm very fine with doing that, at least to the point where my university starts. Because I feel that this helps me present my ideas out there, and also talk to myself in a manner where I continuously argue with my own thoughts. And even though this sounds a bit psychotic when I say it, I think I feel it serves a purpose to my sense of discipline, my sense of discipline, disciplinarity, as I might say it. And as to, I think that even though podcasts are very common these days, I feel that they're a great way to give back to the community. They are a great way to think about a few things, think about sensitive issues that you might want to bring the people's attention to. And here's the thing, people are very hesitant when starting these things, when starting a YouTube channel, when starting a podcast, and they're very nervous when they have a microphone up to their face or a camera on their face, which is pretty understandable. But I feel it also shows that they're probably not very vocal about their ideas, or they do not even have a present idea in their very mind when they think about it, which really scares me as a person who started this podcast. Because I feel that it's a very great step for someone to just get out of their shell and just do something that actually makes them happy. And productivity, this podcast to me is a tool for productivity, as I would like to call it. It will allow me to probably network with people I've never networked with. It will probably allow me to just go out of my seat, to go out, get out of my comfortable zone and talk to people that I would never talk to cold message people which would get my ego bruised, where they might or might not reply, where they might or might not be rude, where they might or might not be kind. And this will probably help me network and just grow in such a manner that I can possibly only optimistically think of. And for the time being, I feel the tools and skills that are necessary and that come along with the podcast is probably the fact that you're able to carry a conversation, be it with yourself or be it with someone else, for a long amount of time. And even though you might suck at it, in the beginning, I think it's about just staying there, because even like the greatest podcasts that you might see take a lot of time to grow. Because who would want to listen to someone just mindlessly blabbering for 30 to 40 minutes? And why in the world would you want to listen to me as an individual whom you do not even know? And I feel that even though this episode as a whole might not serve as a establishment for this podcast, but it will probably help me grow my conversational skills, so that in the future, if I might or might not have a great guest that might or might not attract your attention, I'll be able to carry a conversation with them that helps you subscribe to this podcast, listen to more episodes, or probably randomly stumble upon this very episode where you probably find inspiration in me starting out from somewhere just alone in a room, having a random phone in me in place of a microphone before starting my university, so that I can get a better microphone by myself. And I just want you to take away from this that even though even though a lot of things, be it your goals, be it doing something, might seem impossible, I think the first step is to do it anyways, regardless of how embarrassing it may get, regardless of how much of a failure you think you would be after doing that. Just go for it, as long as you do not have repercussions that you might face on your time and money or something that you care for. And I would just promote everyone who's listening to this right now to just go out there, to just follow what they want, or just randomly try out something that they have been dying to try out. Be it starting a podcast, be it starting a startup, be it talking to this person that you've been wanting to talk to, be it asking that one question to this person who inspires you. Just send that mail. No, nobody will know, and it will just probably give you this sense of validation for yourself rather than others giving it to you, that you've probably done something that embarks yourself on a journey of self growth and discipline, that helps you think of yourself and your actions from a very productive mindset and point of view. With which I feel that, having recorded for about 25 minutes now, this will probably serve as the first episode of the Aptate podcast. Even though it is very short for our first episode, I feel that I need to prepare a longer script and a lot more questions for my podcast. And the next time I come in, I'll probably come in with a more specific topic. Like right now, today I wanted to talk about productivity, but turns out that this podcast as a whole, as I've discovered, is a tool for productivity for me, which more or less brings it down to the intro of this podcast and why it is what it is in the first place. And yeah, that will be it. And until then, see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening.